Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
This is episode 28. 28. We're doing well. 28, that's all right, isn't it?
Maybe when we get signed by Netflix, we'll start.
Yeah, exactly. Then we'll break it up then. But there you go. Right then. So so Maggie, I'll do a quick intro and then we'll just get into it.
Oh, I thought we started. I thought that was quite good. Oh,
don't worry. I'll chop it all up and I'll stick certain. I'll chop it up and stick.
We're professional.
Okay, I'll get started. Hang on. Right. Hello and welcome to episode, shut up Paul, 28 of the Health Oddity podcast. I'm not starting again. No, we're carrying on. Episode 28 of the Health Oddity podcast with my good self, and my hair's looking a little bit better. James thought I'd cut it this week, but I haven't. It's just because it's calmed down a little bit. Maybe it's under the weight. Who knows? We're sitting here with Mr. Telly Savalas, James St. Pierre himself. Say hello, James.
I should have a lollipop, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah, who loves you, baby?
Yeah.
I'm only saying that. I'm not being nasty, by the way. You said something about looking like Telly Savalas last week. So
because I've had a freshly shaved head again today. Look.
Have you? Oh, look at that.
Finally, look.
That is brilliant. I've got one of them little spots in front of my eyes now from the light bouncing off it. But there you go. So that's James. And we also have the other guy, Mr. Paul Bassett, sitting with us as well. Our other co-host.
I just got a memory of Black Books when he does his impression of Belly Savalas, where he sticks a lollipop in his belly button. And he says, "You don't want to know my kabumbo."
Oh, blimey. Right. Okay, that put me off now.
I'm not sure if Black Books will translate to the international audience, but
it's great, though, but if you don't, but it might do. You never know.
I do, yeah, I do.
There you go. Right, and anyway, right. So we have with us today as well, all happy and smiley, is Maggie Elliott is our guest today. Hiya, Maggie.
Hiya.
How you doing?
I'm good. In fact, I'm amazing. I'm going to not do the British thing. Amazing.
Yeah, we were just having a conversation. Maggie's gone international now, and she's training people in the States and what have you, worldwide, should we say?
You know it.
Before we started recording, we were talking about like how's it going, and it's like British people are like everything's like not bad or it could be worse or whatever. Whereas no, we're good, we're great, we're amazing. So. Quick intro for Maggie. Maggie, I can't remember where I met you, Maggie. It was on a certification somewhere.
It was, yeah. I think it was SFG1 or something, like a few years back.
It was a while ago. I can't specifically remember which one it was because I've seen you at several others.
Loads.
Loads. So is James as well. Yeah, but what's great about Maggie is whenever you see it, you'll see this if you're watching it on YouTube, or you'll hear it over the recording. She's just such a happy person, and it just makes you want to smile, basically. And if you watch her skipping videos on Instagram, which we'll get into later on as well, they're just great. It just brightens up my day, Maggie. It does.
Ah, yay!
There you go. So anyway, Maggie is a strength coach, SFG1, SFL, all of that stuff. She's great at skipping. As of the last year or so, lockdowns made her good at that. Oh yeah, you do a podcast yourself, don't you? The Body Confident podcast.
Yes,
with Elliott
Body Confident. That's the one.
Yeah, and all of that. So that's a little bit of an introduction for you.
I like that introduction. That was nice. That was a good one. Summed me up nicely there, I think.
Yeah, I think I find it was amazing.
Amazing. Awesome.
Get carried away, Peter. It will go to your head.
I know. Sorry. So anyway, Maggie, tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh, stuff you haven't. Well, I'll build on what you said. So I started skipping, otherwise known as jump rope if we're in the competitive sport area of it, in May, and I became a little bit obsessed with it because I love it. And I started just by jumping over the rope, 5,000 skips a day to raise some money for charity because I felt like I just wanted to do something. We weren't doing a lot, were we, in the first lockdown? Felt a bit sort of thought, what can I do? So raise money, and then got a little bit carried away with it all, because I saw people doing all these tricks, like crossing the rope under their legs and leaping over it, doing fancy things. And I was like, I want to do that. So I did. So that's been my latest little project. And generally speaking, day-to-day life, I've got a little PT studio. I train people mainly in kettlebells, sort of general strength training. And most of that's online at the moment, like all of us are, really. Yeah, don't know what else there is. Maybe I got a dog. He's sleeping on my lap.
Birds, yeah. Birds.
Yeah.
Where are you based at the moment, Maggie?
So I'm in Manchester, in North Manchester, in a little bit called Prestwich. I actually feel like I live in a soap for the last year, because I live in a house that's 50 metres from where I work, that's 50 metres from where I shop, that's 50 metres from where, when I'm allowed to, I drink. I'm like turned into something from Coronation Street. So
I always think that when I watch those soaps, right, like Coronation Street, EastEnders, right, you get a tenner out of a bank machine, right, and that tenner goes into the pub and then into the chip shop, and then it must, like, you'll get like 10 years later, it'll come back, you'll be like, oh, I remember this tenner.
Yeah.
You write down the serial number, because like nothing ever leaves the local vicinity, does it?
I think most people feel they're living in EastEnders, don't they?
Why EastEnders?
The depression and the anguish and the screaming and the crying. I mean, that's the general picture you see of the world at the moment. It's more like EastEnders. I mean, there's always a bit of levity in Coronation Street, isn't there?
That's true. Yeah, maybe it's just we've lost all hope and we're in EastEnders now.
So, as long as it's not Hollyoaks.
How long have you been in the fitness industry, Maggie? What did what happened before skipping last May? When did you come in? How did you get involved?
Yeah. So I've been a PT in June for 5 years. So it's coming up to 5 years this year. And before that, I was a teacher. I was a secondary school teacher for 15 years. Nothing to do with exercise. I was an English teacher. And actually, if you'd spoken to me 20 years ago, I had absolutely zero interest in any form of exercise whatsoever. I probably didn't get into it until my late 20s, maybe even early 30s. I was a kid at school who was forging notes, don't tell her, from her mum to get out of things like sport and PE. It was nothing that interested me whatsoever. So I was an English teacher, and I left because, well, really for my mental health, if I'm honest. Looking back now, I know that's what it was. It was just starting to destroy me a little bit, which is a shame because it's a really good job. But equally, they just expect so much of you, and you have to give your entire self to it. And then you start to just lose little bits of yourself, which is a shame. And I recognised it wasn't doing me any good. And I always said as well, because I didn't intend to be a teacher, I was going to be a journalist. So I'd always said, I'll only be a teacher as long as I really want to do it, because I think that's fair on the kids. And I got to the point where I didn't really want to do it anymore. Didn't have a clue what to do. I was like, going back to my early 20s, I'm like, I've left uni and I don't know what I'm doing with this. And I ended up falling into a job in teacher training. Realised that it is the face-to-face stuff I enjoy. It's not the theory and learning element of it. It's very much being with people and coaching people. And it was a couple of friends who said to me, well, you're really into your exercise. I was big into running at the time and stuff like that as well. I'm like, I don't know why you don't be a PT. And I didn't even then at first contemplate it. I had this idea in my head that I wasn't your typical PT. I was like, well, I don't look like a PT, so I couldn't do that. And then I decided.
Now look at all of us. None of us look like.
And this is what you mean when you get into it, right? That this like little Instagram notion of what a PT looks like, where they're doing their little plank challenges with a little abs showing. That's actually mostly people don't look like that. And eventually I decided I'd just train people who didn't want to train with a typical PT. And that seemed to have worked okay. So I got so fed up in the job. I was not built to sit down. It's not a thing I do very well. And working an office job, I just realised there's no way I could do this for any longer. So I did that for a year, and then I ran PT qualification alongside, then cut down my hours there, which she very kindly let me do. so that I could transition into this. And I thought it would take me about a year to transition. I started everything mobile. It was all going to people's houses or training outside. I aimed at a market of women who couldn't get to the gym anymore, but perhaps used to really love going for various reasons, like childcare, or they were on maternity, or they were prenatal. So it wasn't right for them to go to the gym anymore. And ended up just doing a little bit better than I thought, to be honest. There was a bit of more of a market than I thought there would be even initially for that. And within 5 months, I'd quit my other job and I was just focusing on this full time. And then it got to having a little studio, which I thought would be 5 years down the line. And I did that in 2 years. And it's all just been a little bit of a, oh, what do I do next? Oh, what do I do next? And then this year, oh, what do I do?
Yeah, I think we've all had a bit of that.
Yeah. But I suppose it's helped. I've always had this little bit of I've had like a vision of what I think it would feel like, what I want to do. For me, I want it to feel like it's something that makes me and the people I train happy. And however that happens, I don't really mind. Like, it's not that I have a particular philosophy and way of training people. I just want people to feel good, and I'll be happy to do that any way I can. And I've therefore always been a little bit adaptable with what I offer, because I base it on what people are asking for and kind of go, oh yeah, I've never thought of that, but let's give it a try. So I feel like that was a bit of a bonus this year, in that I've always been that kind of person who can adapt on the hoof a bit, that I was able to go, all right, okay, so I can't see you in person, but let's work out how we do this. And of course, like, Zoom now is just in the vocabulary, isn't it? But I remember looking up on the computer, how do I video conference people?
Yeah, I thought that, because my missus is a teacher as well. She's been doing it like 20 years. She's primary school, although she's in school improvement now, but she absolutely loves it. But I remember they do stuff on Zoom, and they were going to have to do stuff with the kids, and the teachers were like, no, we need training on it. And she's like, no, you don't. You just figure it out. It's not that hard.
That's it.
You know, everyone else is figuring this stuff out, so you have to do it the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
So why did you get into it? What made you get into fitness? Because I know you started it. Did you start BMF or something?
Yeah, that's what got me into fitness, for the love of fitness. So I'd say 2 things happened. In my mid-20s, I would use the term working out, because I don't actually use that term anymore, because I think it's got some negative connotations for me attached to it, because I was literally working. I got into it because I thought I needed to lose weight. And I say I thought, because I look back now and I think I didn't, but I thought I needed to lose weight. And the way of doing that was working out. And I know that when I was about 25, I would be in a school holiday. I would spend 5 days a week for 5 hours in the gym doing class after class after class after class. And it wasn't even that I enjoyed the classes. Half of them, I didn't actually like what I was doing. I was doing it so I could eat food. And that is the relationship I'd started creating. Exercise and you can eat. And
how many calories do you burn in 5 hours?
Well, at the time, it wasn't even like fitness watches. So I was just making this up. I was going, well, that's probably 300 calories. We'll have to go to one now so we can have dinner. Yeah, it wasn't healthy at all, to say the least, and it wasn't very enjoyable. And actually, what was funny was, at that time then, a friend started running, and she got me into it. And for me at the time, that was another way of burning calories. It was just like, right, brilliant, running's great, that's really good to burn it. And it was in 2007 I did run the London Marathon. I swore I would never run again after that, and it put me off for 5 years, because I was so badly trained. I just ran. I didn't do any strength training. There was no supplemental training to it whatsoever. I just ran. I ran on the fewest calories I could possibly put into my body. And it just destroyed me. I look back now and I'm like, I was destroyed. At one point, I was going to specialists in hospital because I was having hyperglycemic episodes and causing to faint at times. I was that low on blood sugars, and they couldn't couldn't work out why it was happening. And when I did my PT course many years later, they were like, very low calorie diet combined with excessive exercise can cause hypoglycemic episodes. I was like, oh, well, that's why that happened.
So when you were going to see these specialists, right? The thing is, right, well, this is why I like Maggie, right? Is when she talks about stuff like this, it's pretty tragic, but look at how happy she is when she's talking about it anyway, right? So when you were talking to these specialists, were you telling them the truth?
Yeah. So I was, and I think this is an issue with what we perceive as health. I was telling the absolute truth because I was proud of what I was doing. I was exercising constantly. I was on a Weight Watchers diet, which they recommend on the NHS. I wasn't even using the points they give you for exercise. I was building my exercise up and saving it and not eating additional points. So I was eating the minimum requirement that Weight Watchers would give you. I was sticking to it rigidly because I truly believed in it. And then I was building up marathon miles and going to the gym, doing classes, like step and body pump and things like that. So just excessive exercise. There was no plan behind it. And I'm telling them this and they're going, yeah, good diet. Yeah, exercises.
Wow.
I ticks all the boxes. So no one really questions that.
Well, it's not really part of the NHS. It's not really part of the education. Nutrition is just the module for most things, so they don't really come in with that perspective. And then obviously, they're dealing with so many things. It's very difficult for them to try and work out if someone's telling the truth or whether or not the calorie intake versus the activity. We think about exercise and we think about calorie restriction, but we don't really think about what happens when you start putting excessive load on the body. How much food should you eat and things like that. And running a marathon is not easy.
Yeah.
This is also one of the things I've just thought there, because if you go to I don't know, if you go to the doctors, everyone, how many units do you drink a week? And everyone will go 21 straight away, won't they? Or 40, or whatever it is. I don't even know what it is now.
Whatever number it's meant to be.
I don't know what it is now because I don't need to know because I don't drink as much as I used to, so it's okay. But, if you go I'll go to the pub for an hour on a Friday night and a Saturday or whatever, the doctor's probably going to go, it's all right. If I go to the pub 5 hours a day, 5 hours a week, it's going to flag something up in it. They're going to be like, right, that's a problem. And it's the same with exercise, right? If you go an hour a day for 3 or 4 days a week or whatever, that's all right. If you're going 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's an obsession. That's an addiction. That's something else, isn't it? It's no matter whether you're running a marathon or not, that's an addiction.
Yeah.
Do any of you get, I've done plenty of sales calls where I've spoken to people who said that they train 7 days a week for 2 hours a day. And then I turn around to them and say, okay, fine, I take it. And then I say, well, I require you to train a minimum of twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, depending on your timetable. And they just tell me flat out that will not work for me. They say that will not work for me. So I'm sure you all come across that.
Yeah, I think what Maggie was saying there, it's kind of, because she's so bubbly and so funny, it's kind of it's funny, but this is a
serious point.
No, what I was going to say was, I think on a serious point though, so many people who we kind of, it sounds kind of a bit absurd what she's explaining, but I know I've seen over the years, people get, like you say, seriously addicted. When I've worked in big gyms and things, you'd see the same person come in and they just be there every morning, and they'd be there for 2 or 3 hours in the morning. They'd be there every evening for 2 or 3 hours. They have got a problem, but even a lesser extent than that, so many people still have this, like Maggie was explaining, have this notion that exercise is, it's the cliche, isn't it? Exercise is, punishment for what you've eaten or what you're going to eat, or people see exercise as purely a way of burning calories, either for burning calories for something they ate yesterday, the day before, or burning additional calories to build up a reserve so they can sort of have a splurge the next day, and I think that is for many people in this country, that kind of idea of you exercise to burn calories and then you try and match what you're putting in and what you're burning on the treadmill or the cross trainer or the bike or the rower or whatever, or the spinning class. That is kind of life for many people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Normal people that probably might be listening to this today,
Yeah, definitely. I know that I only got rid of that mindset maybe about but less than 10 years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I would still MyFitnessPal everything I ate, and honestly everything I ate when I was on holiday, at Christmas, no matter what day it was, because for me that was the control I needed over food, not to put weight on. I would MyFitnessPal. Well, I have a fitness tracker that feeds into MyFitnessPal, so I don't even need to put in what exercise I've done. And although when I started BMF, exercise, the reason I was exercising felt like it changed a bit. I was still very obsessed with the calories I intook into my body, and so much so it's taken a really long time to unlearn this. But I wouldn't be able to go into a supermarket at lunchtime, go to the fridge section and just pick up a sandwich because I fancy a ham and cheese sandwich. Because as soon as I saw the front of that packet, I would see that it was red and go, oh, no, that's too much. And then I'd be looking for the green. There's something that laid it under 300 calories in a sandwich, because it just becomes so ingrained in me that you can't eat that many calories. And I've had to kind of get rid of, I've purposefully now unlearned that stuff. I'd say I was a walking calorie counter for a long time, so it's difficult to do, and even now if I actually actively think of it, I can tell you quite quickly how many calories I've eaten in a day. And when clients show me pictures, I don't have to input it into MyFitnessPal. I know I'll be right when I do. We all have that kind of ability, but for me it became pretty toxic because it absolutely dictated everything I did, and even down to social occasions. So I found myself one time going out for dinner with some friends and not being able to find anything on the menu that would be within the calorie count that I could eat that day, or within the allowable foods that I let myself eat, because there was a lot of foods I restricted as well, and I didn't let myself eat them anymore because they were bad. And then that upset me, and then I didn't enjoy my night out because I've got this guilt from having to eat something, or I'll just have a starter, so I'd then be hungry for the rest of the night, or drinking alcohol on top of having a starter because I didn't want to consume too many calories.
So how did you break that cycle then?
I've done a lot of reading and research, I would say, into it. So a lot of reading around and there's a lot of debate over this, but just to help me really to see it all, I've done a lot of research on HAES, so the health at every size, and what it actually means to be healthy versus what it means to be slim or to lose weight, and so on. I did a lot of reading about why I was doing that, and what eating disorders and disordered eating is, and how that comes about. And I started to understand actually a lot of it wasn't to do with food for me. A lot of it was to do with the sense of control I was looking for over that from the food and the exercise.
Was there a trigger?
Yeah, stress. So that helped as well. I think that it contributed to me leaving teaching, actually, when I think about it, is that I realized as well that there were lots of things in my everyday life that I dealt with that made me pretty unhappy, and then I took control elsewhere because I couldn't do it in my job. My job was what it was, and I responded to things and I reacted to things. So yeah, I think it's been easier to move away from that since I left that environment, and I have control now actually over my own life. I feel like one thing I'll say about loving being self-employed is that yes, I still respond to clients' needs and members' needs and so on and so forth, but I get to make that choice. I get to make the decision at the end of the day, and I think I feel a lot more in control of things that way. And then I also, with the reading and research and understanding I started to experiment almost on myself to see how things work. So understanding that I was scared of certain foods, so I forced myself to start adding them back in, but understanding how, like, carbohydrate, for example, actually works in the body, and not to be scared of it. And when I added it back in, what to expect to see. When I took it out, what to expect to see. And so I would restrict carbohydrates for 3 days after eating them and see that there was a loss in weight, and then I'd eat them again and see there was a gain in weight and go, oh, actually, this is just fluids. This can't be fat. I know that's not possible. So now I need to be less scared about my weight. And I managed to disassociate this sense of me being bothered about the number I weighed with actually just being healthy and fit, and that weight can go up and down, and it actually is completely arbitrary and means nothing because I can manipulate that. So knowing that kind of helped. Reading about what boxers do, what body builders do, actually that helped because it helped me understand what diets are actually doing and how they're manipulating the weight within your body, and that's not just fat. So I think that helped me. And then the other thing that helped was finding fitness that made me feel strong. I'd never done weight training before, and it started with boot camp like BMF, and actually realizing what my body was capable of doing. I got into obstacle races, and I got into, like, I've done the commando trail, which is the one that the fan dance that they give to the Marines as part of their training, and I did it with the weight, and you know, and it was kind of like, yeah, actually, I'm 5 foot nothing, but I can carry 20 kilograms on my back and climb up a mountain back down again, and that's cooler than being a weight.
That must have been tricky because I've done that on Jacob's Ladder. The steps, like those rocks are like...
Oh my God, it's vertical at points.
You have to like box jump each one of them.
Maggie, someone, I can't remember, I think Pete might have mentioned before we came live on air that, sorry, that sounded very...
Getting carried away.
Yeah, I know. Well,
we're all getting a bit big for ourselves.
We are, aren't we, live on air? Before we press, more accurately, before we press record, that you were at one stage like a Weight Watchers consultant, or you ran a Weight Watchers group or something. Where did that come in the kind of the timeline of, you know, of being a teacher and then getting really into your exercise and doing your personal training course? Kind of where did that fit, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, so that was my mid-20s spot. So that was the full-on weight loss time. And I lost weight with Weight Watchers. I am a rule follower. I love a rule. So you give me rules to follow, and I'm not one of these people that cheats them. I'm like, I am on it. So for me, Weight Watchers was brilliant because I was a person who loved going and standing on a scale and being told, yeah, you did it right. And I was like, hey. And then they'd ask you in the meeting, you know, what did you do? And I'd be like, me, I did this. And then other people go, oh, that's a good idea. So that was very me. And then I also had a lot of debt, though. I'd left university with a lot of debt. And I saw being a Weight Watchers leader as covering two things. Ooh, I can share my love of Weight Watchers and help other people lose weight, because it clearly works, because it worked for me. And I can also clear some debt off, because it's the kind of thing I can do in the evening and school holidays. They're very flexible. You run it as someone who's self-employed. And then they give you a meeting, and you can also cover meetings, which I used to do in holidays and stuff as well. So I enjoyed it at the time. Like, I loved it. It was just another way of coaching. In fact, at the time, I remember thinking, oh, I wonder if I could do this full time. And it never happened, which funnily enough, it kind of has, but differently. What changed was I'm also the kind of person who loves learning. So I'm doing the Weight Watchers stuff. They don't teach you anything. Weight Watchers, very interestingly, when you go on their 3-day training course, they teach you how to teach people. They teach you the coaching element of it, how to facilitate a meeting, how to write a plan, so on and so forth, which was quite funny because obviously I've been a teacher for so many years. I'd been teaching for about 6 years by the time I started doing the Weight Watchers, and everyone at the end has to give a 20-minute meeting, and she left me till last, and I was like, why she left me till last? And then I gave my 20 minutes, and there was this moment where everyone just sat silent with their mouths agape. They'd clapped everyone else, and they just sat in silence, and she looked at them and went, what's wrong? And they were like, we can't do that. She's like, she's a teacher, it's why I left her till last. So I'd been hoping that I'd learn more about nutrition, because that was the side of things that I was lacking. And so I did, whilst I'm doing the Weight Watchers stuff, and I'm using their website, which has a weekly theme, and it tells you how it fits in with their plan and points and all that kind of element things. I started learning about why the plan works. So, okay, well, why do you lose weight? Well, what is weight loss? Well, what is the body doing? Well, what is nutrition? And I discovered that actually the plan doesn't work for 95% of people, and there's a really good reason behind that. And mainly because no one understands what they're doing. The whole point of Weight Watchers is not to reveal what you're doing, because then you wouldn't need them anymore. It's to say, these are the foods you're allowed to eat, and these are the foods you're not allowed to eat. And that messed me up. That really messed me up. And the more I read about it, the more I started to realize that there were certain things I didn't eat, and I didn't need to not eat them because they were high in fat. The only reason that they were left out of Weight Watchers is because the really easy way of cutting someone's calories is to cut fat, because it's got the highest number of calories per gram in it. So cut the fat out and you're done.
It's basically a closed system, so it makes sense in and of itself, but really when it's put to scrutiny, then it you start seeing the cracks. And obviously what happened is you applied that system to a real world thing, which was your marathon, and it didn't hold up.
No, and particularly I think understanding nutrition and the way that works now, I was lacking fat entirely. I didn't eat fat, like really at all, unless it accidentally happened to be a tiny amount in something. I was eating fat-free products. I didn't go near even natural fats like avocados, eggs, nothing like that. I didn't eat them. They were too high in points. So I didn't actually have a proper recovery system for putting my body through that level of training.
Well, there's one thing that I've got a client who's a lower limb specialist and works with a lot of athletes. Also, a lot of her time is taken up amputating feet from diabetics, because a lot of the time the reason you see amputations is not because people have been in war; it's because of their diabetes, and usually type 2 diabetes. But one thing that she comes across quite a lot, particularly with the female athletes, is something called REDS, which is the relative energy deficiency, and things like amenorrhea, where people start losing their periods. So they have this high energy output constantly for many, many years. And things like osteoporosis and stuff like that start to occur because they've had this chronically low calorie intake, very high output. And did you start finding that your body, other than obviously the glycemic issue that you had, was there other things that were kind of starting to happen to you?
Yes. So I was seeing a physio for the entire time I was training because my knee hurt. And it wasn't my knee. It was like just a general lower body falling apartness. I had a lack of strength in any of the key muscle groups, particularly in the posterior train, that I needed to do with. I wasn't recovering then from when I was training. She was advising me to do less training, but I had to train for a marathon, so I wasn't. And I wanted to lose weight, so I wasn't. And also when I finished the marathon, really interestingly, I couldn't breathe fully for maybe 8 months. I mean, probably trauma to the diaphragm, I would have thought in some way. But I went for like the lateral flow test, doesn't it? They call it, doctor. I went for those. They were testing me, checking I didn't have like exercise-induced asthma or that sort of thing. But yeah, I really struggled with breathing as well. So it pulled my body apart, basically.
I was going to say,
what was your like? Because you're saying like, right, you wanted to lose weight. What was your goal? Where did you want to get to?
As slow as I possibly could.
There was nothing on you by some point, but you still had that thing. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I need to get the next meeting and get on the scales, and they tell me about. When does that end? When does it end? Within Weight Watchers or within life, you know what I mean? When does it end?
And this is the problem. When you get caught in it, it doesn't. So I was, interestingly, and I'm honest to clients about this now in terms of weight. So interestingly, when I started Weight Watchers, I weighed the same as I do now. Very different body composition, a lot less muscle mass, because I didn't do any exercise for a start, but I weighed exactly the same. I then went on this route, and when you go to Weight Watchers, they say, what would you like to weigh? there's nothing scientific about it. They ask you what you'd like to weigh. Now, as a woman, you have a number in your head that comes from your late adolescent years, probably around 17 or 18. That's when you decide that's what you should weigh. And that's what majority of my women have tried to continue weighing for the rest of their life. And that was my weight. I wanted to weigh 8 stone 2. That was about a stone-ish loss. So I got down to that in a month. It was really fast. But then I was like, ooh, but in my BMI bracket, I could weigh as little as 7 stone 2. I wonder if I could get to 7 stone 2. So then I was absolutely just fully focused on getting below 8 stone and then getting to 7.5 stone, because that's an amazing number. That's like 7.5. Wow.
Did that equate to health for you? So you thought, right, okay, if I'm down near the lower end of this scale, then I'm going to be more healthy? Or was it just a challenge for you that you just wanted to go for?
It's a good question. I don't think I thought about health back then. I think it's a health focus that's allowed me to move away from that. I'm not sure I was equating it with that. I was quite young at the time as well. So I think it was mostly aesthetics. I think I'll look good if I'm that way. That's how someone who looks good looks.
Is it true, Maggie, as well? Like, it seems as well to these, that if you go every week and you've lost another pound, you've lost another 2 pounds, everyone gives you a big clap.
Oh.
Whole congratulations, that whole kind of attention, that whole positive reinforcement that you get every single week, isn't it? And if you keep knocking the weight down, you keep getting those cheers, don't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a full-on celebration of the fact that you've lost it, and it boosts you on to carry on. And absolutely. I think, and it's interesting when you become a leader, you have a leaders meeting once a month, and when you go in, they weigh you, and you get presented with raffle tickets. If you've lost weight, regardless of whether you need to or not, right? So if you've lost weight, you get 3 raffle tickets. If you maintained weight, you get 2, and you get 0 raffle tickets if you've gained. And those raffle tickets equate to the subs that you pay into the meeting, and then the person who gets pulled out of the raffle wins those subs for that month.
I think this is a really interesting thing you brought up, James, because I recently had a client text me saying, I've just done the 10,000 swing challenge after listening to the Dan John podcast that we did. And I'm like, you need to tell everyone in the group about this. And everyone was clapping because she'd done 10,000 swings in the course of the month. And I'm sure you do it in your businesses, Peter, James. You're congratulating people for things like the tactical strength challenge and stuff like that. So Maggie, what about you? How have you started taking that kind of cheerleading and applied it to your business now when it's more mature state, where you've got more information, more knowledge? What are you doing instead to kind of raise spirits for your clients?
So so one thing I have done, because of my experience with this and history with it, and maybe over the years I've even tailored this even more because of the women who's come to me, and I've seen them go through a very similar thing through their life. We are now completely weight neutral. So one thing we never do, for that very reason that you've pointed out, is we never celebrate weight loss. I know there's a reason to celebrate weight loss, but for the kind of ladies that come to me, they've got a history of repeatedly battering themselves with weight loss, and then feeling that their value comes from the fact that they were able to lose those pounds. It's that celebratory thing. And I train ladies of all different shapes and sizes, but it's that idea that we should celebrate that we've simply lost some pounds. It can really screw their heads up, because it did mine. So we stay away from that just to keep safe, if nothing else, of it potentially happening. And because when it goes back on again, which for a lot of people it does, then it's a sad thing, and it doesn't feel like an achievement anymore, and they feel really guilty about the fact they did put it back on. So we celebrate fitness and strength for the other benefits it brings. We celebrate in different ways. I made up a system that recognizes different levels, a bit like belts, for example. So these are the kind of the basic things that you might be able to do, like swing at 16 kilogram 10 times, 3 times over, be able to snatch, so we've got them in there. So it's basic and intermediate and advanced, and we celebrate when they hit those different levels. We've got a board that they write on when they hit a PB that's just personal to them. So you press the 12 kilogram 5 times, you've never done that before, get your piece of chalk, write it on the board, we film it, and then they get to celebrate that moment as well. We've actually, really good. We've actually some other ideas in there as well. We want to. I hope none of them are listening. It'll give it away. We're going to get some bracelets. And when they are listening, I hope they're listening. They're listening. We want to give them something physical to celebrate as well. You know, like the commitment that they make to their fitness. Some of our members have been coming for so many years, and a lot of them never thought they would. I've got ladies who turned up and have said to me since, "Do you know I didn't even know what kettlebells were?" And I'm like, "Really?" They're like, "No, I didn't have a clue." I was like, "How come you came then?" They said, "Just thought I'd see." And they've been coming for 3 years. So we want to get some like little bracelets. You know, those little bracelets where you can add the little things, and they make white words up, and then it would make the words up around it, like a little positive affirmation along with the name of us as well, or something.
Almost like little sort of charm bracelets.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, like a charm bracelet. Yeah. So we find ways of celebrating, and then we also recognise. I really ask them to look for what they can do in daily life that they couldn't do before. So a really good example is one lady who's in her 60s. Blooming hates Turkish get-up still, but recognises the value in them because she thinks it's accredited to the fact that she went camping, and when she came back off camping, I got the biggest hug from her when you're allowed to hug, and I was like, "What's that for?" She said, "I could kneel down and put the tent pegs in." And I'm like, "That's amazing." Like, she had never been able to crouch down, kneel down and get back up again and put tent pegs in. The following year, she gave me another hug because she could get off the airbed without bowling and struggling.
That's hard for anybody getting off an airbed.
So it is though, isn't it? It's a practical impossibility.
Especially if you haven't had the lung capacity to blow it all the way up as well, it's even harder.
Exactly.
The ultimate test of strength and mobility is getting on and off a lilo that's floating through.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't get. Was it You've Been Framed? Most of the videos of people kind of falling off lilos in swimming pools and stuff like that.
Yes.
Good for that. It's all right,
you do. It's true.
No, that's great though. Like the celebration of things like that, of like the positive things. So then, because what you said earlier made a lot of sense. Like, you celebrate. Like, there's someone I know whose mum used to say to them, basically, this is someone who I knew in a previous life, who was actually bulimic as well, and her mum would say to her, you know, that she'd either say, "Oh, how are you doing? You look lovely. You've lost weight," or she wouldn't say anything at all. And it's the similar thing. It's like, celebrate, you've lost weight, celebrate. And then you haven't lost weight. Oh, well, never mind. And it's like, well, hang on. Well, you can celebrate that because you might have put on some muscle that you needed, or you've got better bone density, or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's brilliant, because then what's happening with the way we all do it now, I think, is, you know, number one, we're not kind of trying to push something onto someone. We're like, cut this out, cut that out. That's good, that's bad. It's like, whatever you want to do, we'll fit it in and we'll make you enjoy it. And then it becomes a thing of like a celebration of the thing. But if it goes the other way, it's not a commiseration. It's oh, well, but you've done this instead, which is a good thing. So it's always focusing on the good, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that.
If you lose 5 pounds and you hit a goal of that weight loss you wanted, you can celebrate and go, yay! But you might find, because circumstances in your life change, despite still continuing to exercise and still continuing to put the same amount of effort in, you've gained that 5 pound back, or even you've gained 10. And then you feel really bad about that because all the celebration was about the weight loss. Whereas you press 16 kilograms 5 times above your head and you continue to train, you continue to work on that. Now you can press 20 kilograms 5 5 times above your head. And that continues to keep building and celebrating. You can't lose that if you work for it, or you feel like you're working for it, but you can lose the success you felt from the weight loss.
Yeah.
And I'm also really mindful as well that sometimes people don't lose weight in a particularly healthy way. And by saying, oh, you look amazing, you've lost weight, you don't actually know how they did that.
Yeah.
It could be quite a triggering thing that you're saying to them.
That what you've just said there, Dan John said that in a previous podcast as well. He said he had a 50-odd-year-old lady client who's basically she didn't have any aesthetic goals. She just wanted to be able to do 3 or 4 pull-ups or whatever it was. But she knows that to be able to do 3 or 4 pull-ups, it's going to be easier if she loses body fat, not weight. If she loses body fat and gets stronger, she's going to be able to do those pull-ups. So aesthetically, she'll probably look better, and all of that. So actually, it all comes with just that one goal.
Yeah.
And everything else kind of has to fall into place for you to get it. Otherwise, you won't get it. So,
this is it. And what's really interesting is that although we never talk about weight, we don't sell on weight, we don't promote weight loss, we just don't mention it at all. My members talk to me about it, and I know that even though we have other goals such as, right, let's, build you up to being able to run this far or to swing this amount, or we have goals in sight for us, most of the time they're going to come to me and go, oh, I've lost a stone. And I'm like, oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
And we don't go, way, you lost a stone. But, because actually what was more exciting about that was they ran the 5K they really wanted to be able to run. And it becomes a bit of a bonus for them that they see as another element of something they've achieved rather than the be all and end all of it, which means that if it does go back on, they're not going to be so disappointed, but also it's probably less likely to go back on because they weren't trying to rapidly lose weight in a really restricted way. It just happened over time because they implemented healthier behaviors. And for me, that's what I'm helping them to see is weight loss or no weight loss. Let's just talk about being as healthy as we possibly can. How can we promote healthy behaviors over weight loss? Because I think that one, it has the opportunity to be destructive for some people, whereas promoting health gain can't be destructive in any way to anyone. It's always going to be something that's beneficial.
Where do measurements fit into that? So, for example, if you have a client and they come up to you and say, hey, I've just lost 7 or 8 centimeters off my waist, how are you interpreting that? Because that would tell me that they're burning body fat, that they are, and obviously if they're training, then they're changing their body composition towards a more athletic physique. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so again, I used to, but now I don't do any weighing or specific measuring of people or anything like that. If they do have a weight loss goal, I keep them off the scales for a start because they have too much associated with that number and it's not healthy, as we said. But I do tell them, do you have something, and maybe it's a little bit tight on you in your cupboard? They're like, yeah, okay, well, put it on and see how it feels. And then every now and then I want you to just put it on again and go back to it and see how it feels. I find that's useful in 2 ways. So they don't tend to know what the measurements are, my lot, but what they do know is whether they've reduced and sort of body size, so to speak, so they can fit in something now. That can be helpful because if they are wanting to reduce their size, it can be something to go, well, just go back and put that thing on and see how you feel. And they're like, oh, actually, it fitted a little better. So I'm like, okay, so we're getting healthier and we are achieving that goal that you did initially want. So let's just keep working towards it. I think that's a better way of doing it because they don't lose heart. They're never standing on a scale or having a measurement that makes them go, and I think that can happen with women a lot because there's so much about us that fluctuates in a month, let alone depending on the time of our life. And it's especially a lot of women I train are coming into their 40s, their perimenopause. We can't control a lot about what's happening, and fluid retentions, weight on the scales, even measurements are going to go up and down. They feel a bit softer sometimes than usual, all that kind of thing. So I tend to work more with them on how do things feel. If they come to me and say, I want to lose weight to fit into my leggings, I say, buy some new leggings. It's a much nicer way because you get some new clothes as well. And then over time, maybe you'll fit those other ones, but let's buy some new leggings. Don't, berate yourself for not fitting them. It's Sweaty Betty's got a sale on.
I
And
thought you were going to say, and you get them from Feel Fit UK.
yeah, Feel Fit's got that. Feel Fit's got discount codes. Could have got that on there, couldn't I? Feel Fit UK's got a discount code.
I'll cut the Sweaty Betty bit out. Otherwise, Ellie will be after you, won't she?
I know, won't she? Do me. Why did my head go there? I've not just bought anything in their sale, honest. Yeah, so and then I helped them actually with body image, because I think so many people lose weight and I still feel the way I did. Well, I'll lose a little bit more, because actually the way they look at themselves isn't actually anything to do with the size of their body. It's what's going on in their head. And so we work a lot on what actually our value comes from and our worth comes from, and why it's important to recognize that you're so much more than the shape and size of your body. I find that the women who conquer that, even the ones who wanted to lose weight and conquer that, are the ones who actually in the end are successful in losing weight and keeping it off for longer, because they're not going to these quick fix ideas and trying to bounce into the fastest weight loss possible. They actually start implementing healthy behaviors, which is what we want.
Yeah. Do you train any men?
Not many. How many have I got now? One. I've only got one left. That's not purposeful, but I think it's probably my philosophy. It pulls women in more than it does men. The guy I train him with his wife as a couple, always have done. Yeah, he's the only one now. I did have a couple more.
I met a guy who you trained. I can't remember his name, but he was at the SFL in November.
Oh, yeah.
He had like reddish hair, Scouse guy. Was he Scouse? Yeah.
Les.
Yeah, Les, that was him, yeah.
Yes. So in one-off kind of training, I say one-off. So I train Les like not every week. Yeah. He comes to me for like technique training stuff. I have more men doing that. So if they come to me via something like wanting to train for the SFG, yeah, I do train men there, yeah. But in terms of sort of like regular one-to-one sessions, there's only Alex left now.
Yeah. So we've probably got about 5 minutes left before we'll have to wrap up on this one, I'm afraid. And we haven't talked about skipping or jump rope. Yeah, jump rope it is, right. Now, have you guys seen this, James and Paul? Have you seen this on Instagram? What Maggie?
Yes, doing? I've seen Maggie skipping around and doing lots of different footwork, and yeah, it's fantastic.
I didn't even know this was a thing. I thought skipping was skipping. There was a bit of double dutch and all that sort of stuff. But this stuff that you do, it's not just crossing your arms and that. You're doing handstands and flips, and also you got that the other day, and it was great. Like honestly, your face was brilliant. Hey, I hit it.
I was so excited.
How did you discover that?
So this was Instagram algorithms, which is amazing, right? Sometimes it helps you. So posting about the 5,000 skips a day, I was using hashtags, and it obviously started showing me things associated with that in my feed. And this girl, Lauren Jump, she's called, pops up one day. She'd only started in March, and I was like, hang on a minute, what's this? Looks like fun. She's not just jumping over a rope. And then it showed me a few other people. I was like, I've got to try this. So, and the thing is, there's quite a big community on Instagram now of jump rope. And it means you can learn tutorials off it. You can literally start learning how to do this stuff from Instagram, and teach yourself. And then I got quite into it. So I got myself a coach. So now I have coaching once a fortnight.
I'm going to get myself a jump rope cutter. What? What's one of those?
That's it. I love it. It's so much fun.
Like, I've seen what you're doing, and it is amazing. So how much further can you go? Because honestly, some of the stuff you're doing, I'm like, if you've got that within a year, are you going to be like going around the world doing workshops and stuff like that, and like all this like amazing jump rope stuff? Imagine that.
Imagine, that'd be amazing.
You could start doing it like on sort of like the Colosseum and stuff like that, and all these landmarks around the world, become famous.
I have this hashtag jump anywhere, and I really enjoyed when we were out of lockdown for a very short period of time, because I live in Manchester, so we literally lived in lockdown for an entire year. When we were allowed out of it for a bit, I enjoyed just going like different places that were really cool, getting my skipping rope out and just going, yeah, and jumping there.
Have you set fire to it yet?
Not yet, but I've seen someone who has, and that looks pretty cool. So Never say never.
It's quite costly because it looks like you burn your rope and then you have to go and get another one.
I know, right?
Lighter fluid.
I've got so many ropes though. I've actually started a rope collection, the different ropes, different lengths. I never even knew there were that many different types of ropes, but now I have to have one for every single different thing I want to try or do at that particular moment in time. So I've got a right collection.
Well, I have to be honest as well, because I said, like, I watch stuff that you do and it just makes me feel good because you're always smiling at that. However, the jump rope thing, I remember when I got double unders a couple of years ago, well, probably 10 years, well, 7 or 8 years ago anyway, when I was like experimenting with CrossFit type stuff. And I got double unders and I was well happy. I was like, I've made it. I've done it now. And then I realized there was triple unders.
Yeah.
And then I've seen what you do and I'm like, God, that's just the beginning. So I gave
yeah. I think that's what I love about it is you look at the scope for what there is and it just goes on forever. There's so many tricks, there's so many things you can do. And once you understand, so one thing I got the coach for, because I'm a geek and I like the learning, going back to that one, is I wanted to understand the theory behind it. So just like I did with the kettlebells, it wasn't just about being able to do it. I wanted to understand the mechanics. I wanted to understand how it fits together, what brings these tricks, what makes them the way they are, and then how do I bring them together like that. So I learned about sandwiching and sequencing. I learned about the mechanics of crossing. There's even a jump rope periodic table, which shows you how they all fit into one another. It's really interesting. And so then once you've got that, I now feel like the knowledge in my head is far greater than my capacity to do it at the moment. So I'm now trying to catch up physically with what I know mentally.
No, hey, I totally get that. It's like that with the Indian clubs as well. It's you learn a few things and then you're like, right, how can I stick all this together?
Yeah.
In a flow or whatever you want to call it. But you know what I mean? In a sequence that just like looks good, feels good, and like it gives you benefit as well.
Yeah.
So excellent.
Yeah. And I get lost with it. You know, sometimes you do something and you literally get lost with it. You don't realize that amount of time has gone past. You honestly believe 10 minutes passed. That's that.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap up there, unfortunately. So, yeah. Right. Well, where can we find you, Maggie? Where can people find your jump rope and your...
Oh, right. So you can find Jump Rope is Jump with Maggie on Instagram.
Yeah.
And we've just started to...
Jump with Maggie or Jump with Maggie?
Jump with.
Jump with Maggie.
Jump with Maggie on Instagram. And then we're also Spark Life. We've just recently rebranded from Spark Fitness because I've started working with a lady who does yoga, Pilates, holistic therapies. So now we're Spark Life because it's all about happiness and health in your life.
I like that. Spark Life, man. That's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you sing that as well?
Spark Life. Yeah, that's one of the things I loved about it.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on, Maggie. That's been brilliant. We love it.
Thank you for having me.
James, any last comments, questions or anything?
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was great. Like I said, I've seen Maggie on a number of certifications and courses before, and we've kind of said hello and had pleasantries and stuff, but to actually have an hour to really find out about her has been brilliant. And I think what we've talked about there, we've got Josh Hillis coming on in a couple of weeks, and I'm reading his Lean and Strong book at the moment, and it's a lot about emotional eating, stress eating, eating skills, that sort of thing. It's going to really tie in with what Maggie's talked about. So no, it was a really, really interesting conversation, I'm sure, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to take a lot from that. So yeah, thank you, Maggie. It's great.
Excellent. Paul, what about you?
I think I'd just reiterate what James said, really. I mean, I think this is probably one of the most relevant of the podcasts that we've done for a lot of clients. I mean, I literally got off a phone call maybe a couple of hours ago talking about, I've got a program which I call the Level Up, because it's basically just increase the amount of training that someone does. And with that, we increase the amount of food they eat. And the sole focus is not to lose weight, it's to become more athletic. And one of the fears that individual had was that they weren't losing weight. Even though the whole guise of the program is to become more athletic. And we went through strategically what areas of success that she'd experienced in the last couple of months. So for me, it was great to hear you go through all of these struggles, and also how you brought a different level of awareness and how you kind of thought very logically, I would say, about how you address the fundamental reasons why you're wanting to control your food. and really replacing it with something quite freeing rather than something very restricting, because it's quite easy to go quite kind of almost have that religious zeal about everything and feel like a Puritan, particularly with nutrition. So you've done a fantastic job, not only educating your clients, but also getting yourself into the right kind of mindset to make constant progress in a way that's aligned with your values. So it's great to hear that.
Excellent. Well, there you go. Right. So, if you like this episode or any other episode, feel free to share it with your friends, subscribe, leave us a review. We've been talking about the listener numbers between the three of us, and I think we've quadrupled listener numbers since we started this podcast, which is awesome. So that is all with your guys' help. So we love that. So please please subscribe, please leave a review. Wherever you listen to this, I mean, we're on Spotify, iTunes, we're absolutely everywhere. So thank you for listening. Thank you all, and we appreciate you all. And we'll talk to you on the next one. And I can't remember who's on that, but
Brad Kearns again.
Brad Kearns. Oh, the next one's Brad Kearns, which will be.
I'm going to be having the coffee because we're recording it at 10 p.m, aren't we?
Yeah, we're recording that at 10 p.m. Because he's over in the West Coast, isn't he? So. Yeah, so that'll be 10 p.m. So we'll all be. I'll be very quiet on that one. I'll just press record and be asleep in the background. But there you go. So thank you, Maggie. And
Thank you very much.
We'll hopefully see you in person soon.
Yes, that'd be amazing.
Excellent. Excellent. And thanks for listening. We appreciate you all. Thank you.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.